Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and I'm glad you chose to listen to this episode today. For many of us, midlife can be a time of deep reflection and change. We might question parts of our identity, rethink priorities, or get stuck trying to figure out what's next. It's not always easy to work through, but it can be a powerful opportunity for growth, clarity, and rediscovery. And today we're talking about that opportunity and some of the stories we tell ourselves about it. Joining me for this conversation is Cheryl Fischer. Cheryl's a speaker, an event moderator, a trainer, the host of the Mind Your Midlife podcast, and a certified life and mindset coach. Cheryl works with clients one-on-one and in group masterclass sessions to embrace their authenticity, trust their decisions, and reconnect with their dreams. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We should warn the listener that we are already joking that we're going to be saying, oh, I agree, and yeah, me too, kind of thing all the way through. So we'll see. But admittedly, we talk about a lot of the same topics and to the same core demographic, primarily women in midlife, not only, but primarily. And so I'd like to just touch on some of those general themes that seem to come up over and over again. And I thought if we could start talking about reinvention, because for me, that looked a little bit like separating from a company that I was with for over 25 years, which meant giving up a team I built from the ground up, giving up friends and colleagues and clients that I, had over that period of time. And then ultimately sort of having to redefine my whole identity. It was a whole thing, took a pause, kind of went into seclusion for 6 months. And so when I was looking at your background and I saw, wow, she was a high school math teacher.
Yes, I was.
There's some reinvention going on there as well. So talk to us a little bit about how a high school math teacher ends up being a life coach and a podcast host.
It's a long and winding road, but yes, a powerful story, I think, too. So I worked in corporate America when I first got out of school, and I liked that. But when I reached the point where I was having kids, I really wanted something more flexible, and I was trying to figure out what would that be. My job would not agree to part-time, so where was I going to go with it? How was I going to do it? And I realized what I really liked about my job was training and teaching and explaining and helping, which is a theme all the way through.
Yeah.
So I took a few classes and I became a high school teacher, and I had the background in the subject, so it wasn't too terribly difficult a transition. And I did that for 12 years as my kids were growing up. And I thought at the time that was it, and I was going to do that for the rest of my career. And then there's so many things that happened, but I started to hit burnout. And I was in my late 30s. So I was looking ahead and I was thinking, I have to do this for 25 more years. What? 25 more years?
And I can relate.
What?
Those yes. Moments of, wait, how did I get here?
Yes, exactly. I think everybody listening has probably had a moment like that where you go, oh my gosh, either how did I get here or how am I going to make it? Yeah. So I ended up starting a business on the side, an online business with a friend of mine, and I was dabbling in that. And I thought it was just going to be a side thing that maybe would turn into something. I don't know. However, when I started that business, apparently I used to complain about it all the time. And my husband said to me one day, Why don't you just stop? Because all you do is complain about it.
Ooh,
And I had no idea. I did not realize that's what I was doing at all. And that conversation led me to coaching because I was personal development, whatever. I don't need that. I'm smart. I'll do the work. And I suddenly realized maybe there's something I should pay attention to here. And of course, it was a path to get there, but it just started me thinking about it. Absolutely.
that's so funny. I was going to ask you about personal development because I saw you comment somewhere that you weren't like a personal development kind of girl before. And then now you live in the center of it. So
hmm
did that shift come gradually? So it was a path to get where you are, but did the shift in your mindset come gradually?
It did. Yes, it did. And I needed the evidence,
Hmm.
and that's the analytical side of me. So he said that to me, and I realized, okay, maybe that's true, but let me just see. And I started paying attention to the conversations I was having at school or with friends, or I mean, in my head, which I had never really paid attention to. And it was truly all negative stuff. It was, why is the copier always broken and the traffic is terrible and I'm tired and there's nothing to eat for dinner and I hate doing this homework. And I mean, just it's stuff we talk about all the time,
Yeah.
but that was everything. And in my head was, "Oh, I'm tired. This was a bad day. This is a bad day. This is a bad day." And I just had never seen it. I had never paid attention. And so once I had sort of that observational evidence, I realized maybe there's something to this. Maybe I could switch it around a little bit.
I think that's the thing and that is one of the themes that I wanted to bring up is the whole inner dialogue, our inner critic, which is often, honestly, I haven't met anybody that doesn't have that or has
Yeah.
not, experienced that. And awareness is the first step at trying to then change it.
Yeah.
But have you found now you're very aware, you do the work all the time, you're helping other people do the work. What's your experience been with it shifting? Has it stopped completely? Yeah, the chuckle. Me too.
Yeah, it's never going to stop completely.
And I bring that up on purpose because I do think people think, I did the work. Shouldn't I be there? Shouldn't I have
Yeah.
arrived?
Yeah,
It's an ongoing
always.
thing.
And I have to thank one of my mentors, one of the first coaches I worked with to try to learn some of this. I was getting really frustrated because I wanted to learn the stuff and change the behavior and get an A, and be done with the class.
Yes, I do know.
I was very frustrated. And she said to me basically what you just said, this is the work. This shifting of your focus and your thoughts is the work always, every day, all the time.
Yeah.
That's the work. And you're lucky to get to do it. And it's going to change your life and you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does get less loud,
Yes,
get
it does.
quieter.
Yes.
It is easier to stop it
Yes.
over time, right? You
Yes.
catch yourself and you can say, oh, cut that out,
Yes.
right? I'm not going to have that conversation right now, whatever you do. Well, let's talk about that. What do you do? What are some techniques that you might give some of your folks, some of the clients you work with for how to shift that, how to change that?
One of the most powerful things that has helped me is to learn how to notice how I'm feeling in any given moment. And so this is something I help clients with a lot. I think, get out of the habit of recognizing our emotions. I mean, I could tell you if I'm mad, sad, or happy. But beyond that, if I said to you on any given day, how do you feel right now? Usually the answer would be, I feel like this has been a stressful day. Well, that's not a feeling.
Hmm.
It's frustrated or embarrassed or concerned, or I actually use a wheel of emotion words because I just don't think we know how to verbalize that. And the reason that I think it's valuable to learn how to do that is that there's always something going on in our heads that's creating that feeling. So if I realize I'm feeling really frustrated right now, then I can kind of pause and think, what is going on in my head? And somehow in my head, I'm telling myself over and over, why didn't I say the right thing in that meeting this morning? And I'm going over and over and over and over. Once I realize, then I can usually go either, well, that's not true, or, okay, well, it's done and I'm fine. Let me just let that go.
Yeah.
So recognizing the emotion and then kind of pausing for a minute, we can sort of learn how to then hear all the junk inside.
I think, similar to you, that the big ones, the easy ones, they're easy. I mean, there's it's probably a better word, but I mean, they are easy. We know when we're mad. We know when we're sad. We know when we're really frustrated. But there's so many in between that I think it's hard to put your finger on. Is it your experience that practice? It's just practice. And I guess I would say you can't get it wrong either, really. It's
Good point.
try something and see if that fits and
Yeah.
helps with the dialogue.
Yeah, I love that you said that because there is no wrong answer. Maybe you pick that, you're going to call this emotion you're feeling right now concerned. Well, nobody's judging you to say that's not concerned.
Well, we might judge ourselves, but yeah,
Yeah.
in the beginning, yeah.
And it really doesn't matter because the whole point is to sort of recognize what's going on in your body. And I've had clients who really struggle with this. So yes, it takes practice. But if you really can't figure it out, then sometimes we think, how do I feel? Does my chest feel okay? Do my shoulders feel okay? Am I holding my jaw really tightly? Like what's going on in my body? Maybe I can recognize something that way.
Yeah.
And that's like a start sometimes as well.
Well, and we both said it, but I'll just cull it out again. The pause. Even if you're trying to take a moment to figure it out, what you did inevitably was take a pause, which likely stops you from the behavior for a minute or whatever period of time, enough for you to sort of get a different perspective and maybe shift your thoughts. So I think the pause is worthy, even if you can't name it right away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's helpful for people to have sort of a trigger to remind them to do that. So I actually have one client who pauses and sort of self-evaluates every time she goes up or down the stairs in her house. That just worked for her. That was her pause. And I know someone else who has a sticky on her computer. She sits down at her computer and it says pause. And she kind of pauses and like takes account of everything. So sometimes you need a little reminder, but that could be anything. We can get creative.
I like that idea too, because you're actually talking about creating a habit of doing it versus doing it in the moment of a situation or of a cycle of having those inner dialogues. You're talking about just making sure that you weave that very intentional check-in into your daily life, maybe multiple times a day if you're going up and down the stairs a lot. But that's a great idea, really.
It really is powerful because I know I didn't realize this, but I don't think most of us realize the inner critic stuff. You mentioned that term that's going on inside our heads all day, really, and often in the night, although we don't necessarily remember. But that's normal. It's normal to have those thoughts going all the time. The reason it's typically a critic is because our brains are programmed to keep us safe, keep us comfortable and out of danger. And our brains are also responding to any beliefs that we have deep in our subconscious about how we're not athletic or we're not good at that or, whatever. And so the brain is always trying to protect you from those things. And that's why it kind of goes too far. You shouldn't do this. Why did you do that? They're going to think this. So if we can get in the habit of catching that, it's really beneficial.
My favorite word has been, with all that I've learned, which is ironic because my favorite word is unlearning. I think that this is the biggest phase of our life where we have to just unlearn so many things.
Yeah.
And part of that are those beliefs that you're talking about, all that messaging that came with us along the way, some very unintentional, but somehow got programmed in there and now we carry it with us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a great time to just really start challenging some of those thoughts.
It really is. And when you mentioned reinvention at this point in life, or no matter what point in life, it's going to take challenging some of those thoughts. Because
Absolutely.
I could tell from your story that you really feel this because we're where we are because of the decisions we made, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to do something different, there's going to be some challenging of things that brought us here.
Yeah.
And that's okay because why not learn something new, try something different? We just have to realize it's okay if we get scared, and it's okay if our brains are going, "What? You're too old for that. It's too late." Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. That's all
All
okay.
the
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's also good to acknowledge that when you're challenging those things, it doesn't necessarily mean they were the wrong things, quote unquote, wrong things. You made those
Mm-hmm.
decisions at some point based on the given situation, the information you had, the messaging you had, all the things.
Yeah.
So it was the right decision at the time. So
Yeah.
it's just that you're in a different time and it's okay to rethink those things and start, looking at life and yourself a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Which leads me to want to talk about that space where you do start trying to figure yourself out. And I think this bubbles up so much at this time in our life because for many of us, it's like there's a lot of change, right? Kids might go off to college and jobs could change. Your situation with your spouse could change. You might be going through something with your parents. There's so many
Yeah.
variables that could be in play there. And it sort of leads us to that spot where we're like, okay, I got here, but is this really where I want to be? And what do
Mm-hmm.
I want to do with the rest of my life, to your point?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we start to try to figure that out, many of us struggle with it, struggle with even trying to figure out, what do I like?
Yeah.
What simple things like, what do I like to eat? Where do I like to go? What kind of things light me up? I don't know if that's been your experience, but I feel like that's one of the hardest things for people to get back in touch with those things.
Yes.
Do you see that as well?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why this particular phase of life, after the kids are out of the house and you maybe have a bit more time because you're not running them around and all of that, we don't know what to do with ourselves, and we sometimes get a bit isolated because now we're thinking, well, what do I like to do for fun?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And it's hard to figure that out. I I just love the concept of just kind of being really gentle with ourselves and saying, let me just try stuff. Let me
Yeah.
just see. Because maybe your neighbor wants to walk with you occasionally, or maybe you want to have coffee with a friend, or maybe there's a mahjong group starting up near you, or you wanted to try pickleball and you go and try it. And be so ready to say after a couple tries, maybe not one, okay, that wasn't for me. I did not have fun with that. Okay, put that aside, no problem. Let me try something else. There's a light energy about it that's really important, because otherwise we make it this sort of second job to figure out how to have fun, which is not going to work.
I love that you acknowledge just trying it a couple of times and being okay with saying this isn't for me and moving on to something else. I think the other thing that I want to put out there and remind the listener is you have to give yourself permission to be a novice, to say,
Yes.
I want to do, I don't know, sculpting, but I've never, or pottery, because I'm thinking about the spinning wheel, but I've
Yeah.
never done it before. Or I want to be a painter, but I've never done it before. So what? Go to one of those,
Yep.
I don't know, sip and paint classes, or one of those
Yeah.
really easy to do. But give yourself to just show up and see if you like the energy of it. You have to go in giving yourself permission to let it go after a few tries, and also to just try it and don't worry about how you do it.
Yeah. And the reason that I really advise people to try it more than once is that, to your point, it's sometimes pretty intimidating the
Yes.
first time, right? We go to this new group and we go by ourselves and we don't know the people and they seem nice, but it's hard to just even get ourselves in there
100.
sometimes.
Hmm.
So that colors that first experience a little differently. So I think two or three times is probably a good idea, unless you just hate it. I mean, if you really hate it, then don't go again. But that way you get a better sense. And then it's kind of pulling the thread of what you got excited about or had fun with or got enthusiastic about. Maybe you went to the paint night and actually you didn't really enjoy the painting, but you saw that they were doing like clay and stuff in the back. And you were like, oh, maybe that's it. And then you
Yeah.
kind of tried that and follow the thread,
Yeah.
you know?
That right. It's just about doing that and following the thread, and you will inevitably find something that you enjoy. I think the other thing that probably gets overlooked, I know it was in my life, and now it's such a big part of my life, and it really fills me up, is connecting with friends. Because for many of us,
Mhm.
and whether you had kids or not, I think still for many of us, we either get tied to our kids, friends, parents, or groups they're in, or we're so busy at work that we don't really make time for outside friendships. Like we have some
Mhm.
friends at work, but we're not
Yeah.
really doing anything with them outside of work.
Yeah.
And for me, I know, and for many of the women that I've talked to, connecting back with friends or making new friends and really having that tight group. It doesn't have to be a big group, but one, two, three women that you can hang out with and really just spend some fun time. I think that really helps. I don't know if you see that.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. And in fact, so many different topics that I've talked with guests about on my podcast have come back to do it in community
Yeah.
because the community is the piece. And so that's what we're talking about. And I would say if someone is listening and feeling like, well, where are these friends? All, they moved away or they
Yeah.
were my kids' friends' parents. I can't call them up. I feel weird. We each might have to take the initiative at the beginning to text or call someone you haven't seen in a while and say, hey, do you want to get a coffee or whatever? We might have to take the initiative a few times. But that being said, they probably are so grateful that we did because they're probably feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People tend to have more time at this stage in their life. Just so I think the connections are easier. Or if all your people are no longer around or you can't meet up with them, listen, when you go to that pottery class or that paint class, find a
Mm-hmm.
buddy, find somebody that
Mm-hmm.
you can connect with and go for a coffee or something. But I do think that's so important and it can really add a dimension to, I think, life that many of us put on the back burner for a really long time. So.
Yeah.
Which sort of ties into balancing self care and time for ourselves against all of the other competing priorities. I don't know if you hear that theme often,
Mm-hmm.
but right. I think that for most women, they've been juggling family responsibilities, job responsibilities, whether that's in homework or out of the house work. A lot of us at this stage have parents we're helping in some shape or form.
Yeah.
It can be a lot.
Absolutely.
And it's very easy to say, I don't have time to go for the walk, or I don't have time to call my friend because I got all these other things. What do you say to that? What's your experience been with working with people around breaking through that thought?
I have two things that I would say. Number one is I think sometimes we build self-care into this kind of strange, time-consuming, selfish thing that is going to require us to revamp our entire day and take an hour in the morning and then
Yeah.
this and that. And maybe that's because of social media and what we saw, who knows? But sometimes it gets morphed a
Yeah.
little bit oddly, and you probably do have time to change a few habits. And the second thing I would say is my favorite concept that I only learned really maybe a year ago in this form anyway, is a glimmer. It's actually a psychological term, meaning basically a moment of joy. So even if life is still crazy and or life has become crazy again, who knows what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we start to look for glimmers, it's brain training that will over time change the way we look at our day. So by that, I mean, when you get up and you get your coffee in the morning or whatever, just pause and think, wow, this tastes really good. Or you look out the window, oh, it's a beautiful day. Just that little bit, if you start to actually focus for just a second on that, that can be self-care because it's starting to train your brain to look for more because it gives you this little jolt of good feeling.
Yeah.
And we want that. Our bodies want that. Our brains want that. And over time, you will see more and more and more and more. And even though you're not, doing the face mask or whatever, you're still taking better care of yourself when you start to recognize things like that.
I think I actually have heard of the concept, and I want to say it was in Mel Robbins' The High Five Habit. But
Yeah.
I think that to add to that, say it out loud.
Yes.
You say it out loud, you really recognize it, right? And then for me, as you're talking it through, it ties into just being very grateful. And if you have a gratitude practice, if you say them out loud, you literally have an easier time remembering them later on.
Absolutely.
So for some people that do like that recall at the end of the day and spend a few minutes thinking about the things that went really well or that they're grateful for, it's so much easier to pick up on those little things.
Yeah.
If you have said them or thought about them. And I love that you reminded us to do that it can be a little thing. I always use an example of, I love when I walk out my front porch and a new flower is blooming.
Yes.
Something so small, but just the awareness of it, it makes you feel good for a minute and it does carry on. And it can be those little things. It doesn't have to be something.
Absolutely.
Some huge thing. I think that's what we initially go in thinking this like needs to be some huge thing, but it's usually not.
It's really not. And the way our brains work, we filter, I'm going to throw a number, but I don't know, 1 million tons of input every second. And we recognize only the pieces of that input that are maybe surprising or that fit with what we really believe is going to happen anyway. And so if you can train your brain to believe that all these awesome little things happen, you see them more. And I don't know, I'm a bit of a brain science nerd, but I just think that is the most powerful thing that is really not that hard to do.
So true. There is actually a filter. It's called the reticular activating system, and it actually helps filter out what you think is important to you. Mm-hmm. So if you think something is important to you, it will deliver you more of those types of things. And the example that people often put out there is a car. Mm-hmm. If you are suddenly going to purchase a new car and you're going to purchase I'll use mine, a Highlander.
Yep.
Suddenly on the road, you see Highlanders every third car, right? You didn't notice them before. You always drove a Ford, but now you're going to drive this Toyota and that's all you see. Why? Did everybody just suddenly buy one yesterday? Of course not. You told your brain you were interested. You were doing research on them.
Yeah.
And now your brain is filtering for that type of car. I say that as an example so folks can try it if they have never really tried that before. I think the one back to Mel in that book, she uses a heart. Look for heart-shaped things out in nature. And you never see them until you're looking for them. And you spot one, and now you're going to keep seeing them everywhere. So our brain is pretty fascinating.
Very fascinating. And it's funny you should say the car, because that's always my example too, because when a long time ago we bought a minivan and we ended up buying this sort of gray-green one. It was the weirdest color. And I thought, where did this color come from? It was what was available. Okay. I saw that color everywhere. As soon as we had even looked at it. But I thought I had never seen it before.
Well, you didn't. They drove by. You weren't looking at them. But yeah,
exactly.
It's such a cool thing. Oh my goodness. So one of the other topics I wanted to bring up, a little bit tongue in cheek, but so you talked about midlife memory.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about what you think about that because it's such an interesting one.
Yeah, it's something that it really stresses us out because we get the brain fog or we can't. I'm constantly, what was the word? What's the word? What's the word? I
I
can't
do
think of
know.
it all the time. And I think sometimes we go, oh no, I what's happening? This is only going to get worse. Is this a bad sign? What's this a sign of? Am I going to have dementia in 5 years? And I researched that because it's a really common worry, and there's really no evidence to suggest that any brain foggy type stuff that might be going on for us right now in our 40s, 50s, et cetera, has anything to do with now we're on the downhill slope toward dementia. And it has to do with a few different things, but not that, which I think was kind of a whew,
Yeah.
okay. It's a lot of times hormone related. Our hormone levels are changing, and brain fog can come with that, but it's temporary typically, and it will get better. It also has to do with us just taking on a lot of emotion and stress at this point. And you've said it, aging parents, figuring out what we're going to do with our career, kids getting older. That's a whole different set of worries and thoughts.
Yeah.
And who knows what else. And when we get all tied up in that, then that's a lot. It's just a lot of stuff for our brains to manage.
Yeah.
And remembering the word for whatever you were talking about is not necessarily the top priority.
Right. Right. I think that's important for people to hear. Obviously, if they have a deep thought that something's wrong and there's more going on, like a lot of
Yes.
missed appointments and stuff like that, go see your doctor.
Sure,
But I do
absolutely.
think, I agree with what you said. And I just chuckled because I certainly have those moments as well. And I think also medication, you didn't mention it here, at least medication can play a role
Correct.
in it. There was something
Correct.
that I was taking for a short period of time, and I found out later that it has that it's known to do that, to make you not be able to think of the right word. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, that's one of those, that pamphlet that has 8,000 things in it. That was one of those little hidden things. But so there's reasons. It's not all about, the worst, most severe situation. So
Yeah.
good to know. I think the last topic that I thought of when I was thinking about all the themes that come up repeatedly was around body confidence in midlife.
Mm.
I think it's often, not I think I know, it's often a time where many of us, regardless of where you sit on the scale, but many of us don't feel like we're at our best physical shape or the shape that we ideally would be at. And I think it's a really hard time to get our head around and sort of grapple with and get okay with it and bring back our confidence, even if we can't get to where we wanted to be or
Mm-hmm.
where we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen in that space? And do you have any suggestions there?
Absolutely. And, it's different for everyone. I think there's a few things that we can do if we get into this funk of, ugh, I'm just so not happy with what I look like or how I feel. One of them, the first thing I'm going to say, I think anyone listening is going to go, "Oh, I know." And that is, please just do movement of some sort. And is it that you just start taking a walk around the block every day and suddenly you're going to be 3 sizes smaller? No, but you will feel better about your body if you give yourself evidence that it can do things.
Hmm.
So even a little bit of movement, I mean, of course it's healthy for you, but you need to give yourself evidence that your body does good stuff for you. And that's a way of thinking about it that may be a little bit different than how we sort of end up self-criticizing. But then the second thing I would say is self-criticizing, I guess. So I don't know whether you or I will ever have the same shape and size that we did 20 years ago. And that's okay. We can learn how to, number one, get stronger now. I, in fact, just recorded an episode. It hasn't come out on Mind Your Midlife, but I just recorded an episode with a midlife fitness coach. And she was saying, you can get stronger every day, a little bit. It's when we stop and we just give up
Yeah.
that we start going downhill. And it's a mindset thing. And then I think learning to appreciate some aspect of our bodies. I mean, yeah, maybe I'd rather my stomach look different or whatever, but let's focus on, I don't know, what you do like.
Yeah.
There's got to be something,
Well, I was just going to add, what you do like and what it can do for you. Because I think back to sort of saying it out loud and changing the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe I can't run 10 miles, but I went to the mailbox today, which is pretty far for me. And, it was fine. It was good. I'm just obviously using that as an example, but I carried the laundry and I went and did the laundry. Some people can't. So start to notice the things you can do and that body does do for you.
Yep.
So maybe it's not the size you wanted it to be, but it can do an awful lot of things, and appreciate those that it can do. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And thank your legs for carrying you down the street, and thank your arms for carrying the laundry basket. And that seems maybe a little bit silly, but it's changing how you're thinking about it. That's the key.
It is hokey. We have to call it out. It's a little hokey for sure. But it does help. It really does help.
Yeah. And we're so mean to ourselves.
Yeah.
Just so, the other thing I would say to maybe catch ourselves in this self-critical mode about our bodies is, would you say that to your friend?
To your daughter.
Oh.
Yeah. Right.
Boy, that really gets you, doesn't it? Yeah. You would never.
Never.
Yeah.
It's a good one to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I gave you a chance to leave only one message, that's all they were going to hear. One message. What would it be?
I want everyone to remember to be a little bit kinder to yourself. In midlife, we need to take just a little bit better care of ourselves. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to take all the time in the world. A little bit better care than we did 20 years ago, a little bit kinder to ourselves, and it makes a huge difference.
Love that message. Tiny, tiny, consistent changes really make a difference. Where can people find you most active?
I am most active on Instagram, I would say, at Cheryl P. Fischer. And my website is also cherylpfischer.com. And then, of course, the podcast, Mind Your Midlife.
And we'll put the links in the show notes for folks as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. I enjoyed catching up on all these themes that we keep running into. Good stuff.
Thank you so much. It really was fun.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.